All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Maddy Peck, and I'm the Director of Partner Success here at Gutten. And I'm joined here today by my associate and amazing colleague, Stevan, who is our Director of Vendor Management. SP, as we like to call him, is a wizard of all things manufacturing and vendor related at Gutten, working with all of our main contacts at the over 30 different vendors that we work with worldwide and managing our team of vendor operations analysts. So we're going to talk to you guys today about apparel and print-on-demand apparel. It's one of our most popular products to sell on our platform, and many of the partners that we work with sell all different types of apparel, colors, sizes, as everything that you can imagine. So we're going to give you a little overview on the apparel printing process and talk to you about some of the manufacturing side. And then we'll dive into some more specifics on apparel at Gutten and some recommendations. So for everyone who's just joining, I'll go over a brief overview. So like I said, we'll do some apparel printing explained, not too technical, but just some of the ins and outs. Talk a little bit about the apparel supply chain, where your blanks come from and how we're getting access to those. Then we'll go into talking about how to choose an apparel model, especially when there's so many different options, especially on our platform, and then some exciting things that we have coming from our apparel offerings. So with that, I would love to introduce Stevan to talk a little bit about how apparel printing works. But Stevan, can I ask you the first question of what's the difference between direct-to-garment printing and screen printing, and what does Gutten primarily use?
Sure. Hello, everybody. So first of all, there are certain differences between DTG and screen printing, which end customers might not know about. But just to give you a brief overview of screen printing as a process, historically, that was the best way to print merchandise. The way it works is that the artwork submitted is separated based on colors. The screens are burnt, again, based on color. The print color that can be discharged color or plastisol is laid out and printed onto the shirt. And then the shirt goes into the drying process and you have a finished product. Now, there are some pros and cons to screen printing. One of the pros would be cost effectiveness on larger runs. As well as the print area not being as restricted as with DTG. However, this isn't a great fit for real-time on-demand orders simply because the screens need to be burned in advance, and it's not too good for intricate designs. You have a limited set of colors that can be burned on the screens themselves, and the combination of screens might not give as much of a detail as a DTG print would. Now, as far as DTG as a process goes, it's great for on-demand printing because it works on single orders. The way it works is that the pre-treatment is sprayed onto the blank garment so that the color adheres to the fabric better. The next step is that the blank with the pre-treatment is laid out on the print pallet, and the printer prints directly on the garment. What is good about DTG is that for darker garments, we do use an underbase. An underbase is a layer of white ink underneath the artwork to really make the artwork pop on the finished product. Now, seeing as screen printing is limited when it comes to one-off orders, DTG is actually a great way to print on-demand orders. And the prints are much more detailed. You can really get into the intricacies of designs, especially multicolored designs. What we experience with DTG, though, is that it's not the most cost-effective on larger batch runs, and the print area is restricted. What you can access through our network is DTG printing. And you can see all of the SKUs available in our catalog on the hub. And we do have 2 print areas. As I did mention before, DTG does have a restricted area. So currently we do offer center front printing and center back printing. With that said, we do use one of the largest print areas out there that is possible to use with the DTG process.
Great, thanks, SP. That definitely helps give some context to our discussion. I know before I started working here, I knew almost nothing about apparel printing, so it's super interesting to learn. And I actually get a question from some of our partners sometimes. They're curious to know what types of DTG machines our vendors use. And for everyone on the call, we have 2 main vendors located in the US, a third in the UK, but we honestly do less business through them. So I'd be curious to hear you talk about the machines that our vendors use, SP, and how all DTG printers aren't really created equal.
Sure. So there are several main brands of printers out there, the biggest ones being Brother and Kornit. What our vendors in our vendor network use are Kornit printing machines such as Storm, Avalanche. They are really on the cutting edge of the DTG apparel world. And their vendors are always upgrading their machinery. We chose vendors that use Kornit simply because Kornit has the best balance of pre-treatment, the color balance, which makes it possible for Kornit to print on white shirts the same way they would do with darker shirts. Which means that the settings are balanced out. So it's all automatic through Kornit, and that's why we chose it. And our partners really like the vibrancy of the end print that the Kornits do give as an output.
Awesome, thanks for that context. One final, more technical question before we move on to talking about some of the apparel models. Can you talk a little bit about, for these different types of Kornit machines, different models, and direct-to-garment printing in general, what kind of apparel and what materials are best for the type of printing that we do, which is DTG?
Sure. So the type of printing, the type of apparel that works best for DTG printing is apparel that has the biggest percentage of cotton within it. With that said, we do also print on poly blends. We also print on heather colors that are not 100% cotton. We do print on tri blends as well. And the reason why we can print on those fabrics as well is that our vendors really did their research. They did their research and development. They did a lot of runs testing on these specific blanks, and they managed to set up the settings so they work for non-fully cotton garments as well. But for DTG as a process as a whole, it does work best with cotton garments because the color actually adheres to the cotton part of the shirt. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. And that makes sense why when you look at like a Gildan 1800 sweatshirt versus something like an independent sweatshirt that has more cotton, oftentimes the print is more vibrant on the independent and stays better true to the shirt. Very cool. Thank you. All right, so that's a good segue, I think, in talking a little bit more about the apparel supply chain. And so where the blanks come from, who the major suppliers are, and how our vendors get access to the actual shirts, tank tops, hoodies, sweatshirts, and everything that we're printing on. Stevan, can you give us just a high-level overview of how that works, and then we can dive into talking about some stocking?
Sure. What some of our partners don't realize is that our vendors don't buy blanks from the brands directly. So our vendors actually do not buy blanks directly from Gildan, Bella Canvas, Teltex, but they buy them through the distributor network that the blank companies work with. Some of the biggest distributors out there in the US market would be TSC Apparel, Sanmar, Alpha Broder, SNS Activewear, and how our vendors get the blanks is actually through the distributor. So the supply chain process would work as such. The distributor gets the blanks directly from the mill, from the actual brands. Our vendors get the blanks from the distributor. And of course, Gutten is set up with all sorts of blanks at the vendors that they can secure stock on for stock SKUs or can order on demand for on-demand SKUs.
Very cool. Thank you for that. I'm going to ask you a little bit more about the stocking part later, but just hearing you talk about that, is it true that bigger brands, like if I were to think about big apparel brands out there who are printing on these blanks and then some of our partners, it's not that we're competing, but everyone kind of has that same selection to deal with. So that might explain some stockouts that we see when a large apparel brand comes in and buys out 100,000 shirts in a color. That affects everyone, not just the Gutten network, but throughout the country when we're thinking about apparel. Is that right?
That's exactly right. One of the best examples would be last year when American Apparel filed for bankruptcy. It's a supply chain issue where either all of us can access certain blanks or none of us can access certain blanks, and that's due to distributors. If the distributor is stocked out, none of the print-on-demand companies out there would be able to access those blanks on demand simply because it's a supply chain issue.
Yep, that's what I thought. So thinking a little bit more about stocking, and I know this is a question that's come up a few times in my conversation with partners. Can you talk a little bit how our apparel manufacturers manage their inventory? Do they keep all of our different apparel models on site in every size or every color? And if they don't, how do they prioritize what to keep, and how does Gutten help with them with that?
Sure. So when approaching stocking, apparel is tricky to stock. It's not like a white 11-ounce mug where a mug is a mug and that's it. You just fill your warehouse with it, and no matter what the order is, you use the same blank. Apparel has several variables that impact the stocking issue. So you can choose a brand, you can choose a model, you can choose the size, you can choose the color. Meaning that inventory is limited at the vendor's location simply because the warehouse space is limited. So what we're doing with our vendors currently is having a stock list and a non-stock list. Stock lists are bin SKUs or blanks that are available at the vendor's warehouse, whereas non-stock SKUs or blanks are the ones that they order on demand as soon as the order hits their system. So that would be the main difference and the reason why we would have these two categories. With that said, the stock category is focused on apparel that prints best through the DTG method, where the supply chain is the most reliable and where turnaround times are better simply because the actual blanks are in the warehouse that our vendor uses. When choosing non-stock SKUs, that can add 1 to 2 extra days simply because those are ordered on demand and they need to arrive to the facility after they are ordered.
Okay, that makes sense. So then if I'm a partner where it really matters to me to have my shirts printed as quickly as possible, I'd probably want to go with a model and colors that are kept on site in the warehouse. But if I'm okay with a little bit extra time to have my products printed, I can feel free to select from items that might be a little bit less popular and the manufacturer has to order them when an order comes in, but it'll still work okay. Does that sound about right?
That's exactly right. One of the good things is that we actually have a knowledge base article that details which are stock and which are non-stock that our partners can reference when choosing the exact models and colors when building out the offer for their stores.
Yep, thanks for that. Okay, so I think with that, and thank you, Stevan, that helps, I think, I mean, obviously me, I work with you all the time, but hopefully everyone on the call understand a little bit more about the supply chain and kind of how apparel printing works. So I want to dive in a little bit into recommendations and choosing apparel models for our partner stores. So this is a question I get a lot, and I know our partner support team fields all the time about, you guys have so many different offerings, especially in t-shirts. Where should I start? What should I pick? And the Gutten team is actually in the process of providing a lot more information to our partners up front in terms of educating you on which models are the most popular and which one take print the best. But I just wanted to outline a few factors for everyone to consider when thinking about apparel and how to choose it for your store. So because there are so many factors, at least for me, if I was a store owner, I would want to start with availability. Is the model available not just through Gutten, but have I, double checked and read some of the knowledge base articles to make sure that it's not something that goes out of stock frequently. So luckily at Gutten, we do a lot up front, so you don't even have to worry about that. We're not going to offer you models that go out of stock all the time because we know it's a poor user experience, but that's always something to have in the back of your head. I'd say price, again, is then the next big important factor. If your clientele is a higher end clients or they have a really premium offering, you might want to go with a next level t-shirt or a Bell and Canvas t-shirt or an American Apparel sweater, an independent sweater. But if you're looking for nice margins and you're making funny t-shirts that people are going to wear a few times and then maybe not have every day, you might want to consider a more economy brand, potentially Hanes. We have some partners who like to use Gutten as well. So then from there, obviously production turnaround time can be a factor. If you're selling on Amazon and meeting a 2 to 3 day turnaround time is really important for you, then you definitely want to select a model that is kept on site just because it's lower risk that it's going to get out faster. But if you have a traditional retail store where an extra day of production time isn't going to make or break you, then you have a much wider array of apparel models to choose from. And then obviously some of this comes down to personal preference. So the quality of the garment, the texture, the fabric blend, the colors, if there's colors available that you want for your designs, does it go up to a certain size, and all of those different questions to ask yourself. So I know it can be a lengthy process, and that's really where my team is here to support you through it. And I'll talk a little bit at the end about some of those materials that we can get out to everybody on this call and that we'll make available on our website too. And then I think that's actually a really good segue because I want to leave time for questions to talk a little bit more about what Gutten is doing with apparel on-demand printing and what some of the stuff is that we have coming. So Stevan didn't touch on this as much when we were talking about our manufacturers and what they keep on site, but we're actually in the midst of a project right now to figure out what the absolute best models, apparel models are for on-demand direct-to-garment printing. So in some cases, that's going to mean out with the old, in with the new, and bringing in completely new models for our partners that take print better, have a wider color offering and more sizes available that have been tested through years of research and development and are proven to result in a higher quality print. In many cases, that's also going to be adding new colors to models that we know work really well, and generally just bolstering our apparel offering going into the summer to help you guys already set up for success in the holiday season. I think a big piece of feedback too on that is working to be more proactive on trend colors. We do a lot of work on our design team and our marketing team trying to anticipate trends and help you guys understand them for your store. But we want to be more proactive on the apparel front because that's a category that changes all the time. So trendy models and trendy colors, if you guys ever see anything out in the market that you think is going to be a big hit with your customers or see other people succeeding selling something, please let us know, because oftentimes we find out about the coolest ideas from our partners who spend their whole livelihoods monitoring this. I mentioned bigger sizes. That's a frequent request. I know everybody comes in all shapes and sizes, so partners want to offer t-shirts and apparel models that go up to the biggest and the smallest, so that's something that we've heard and we're working on as well. And then finally, some of the really cool stuff that we have coming for you is expanding print areas. So Stevan mentioned that we do have limitations with our DTG machines in the number of print areas that we can cover, but we've been working now on a while long project to add custom neck tags to t-shirts. So if you wanted to have your brand, your website, your size information printed on the inside of a shirt, we should be able to have that available for you pretty soon. And we're also hoping to add some more niche items. I saw a bomber jacket sample in the office the other day that was really cool. We've talked about embroidery. We've looked at different styles of shirts, different styles of sweatshirts, new brands out there. So that's part of our effort to help you guys differentiate yourselves from other store owners and really have that competitive advantage when thinking about your business. So I think, wrapping all of this up, and we want to keep this short and sweet today for everyone on the call, would love to hear questions from anyone here. I think we've seen a few already come in that we can start to answer, but if anyone has any questions about the process or models that I didn't cover or Stevan didn't touch on, feel free to add those and we'll do our best to answer them live. All right, let's see. I see a question in here. Does Gutten offer logo importing from other competitors to not have to redo all the work? So that's actually a great question. And I can talk about that in two different ways. So if you're a Shopify store owner and you already have products set up in your Shopify store, we do have a capability to link all of your products in bulk on our back end. However, that is going to require you providing us with the print images because we have to save those or be able to access those directly in order to send the print file to manufacturer. So there isn't a way we don't have a way through our API to go out and kind of collect all of your data or logos, unfortunately. That would be really cool, and it's definitely something our engineering team might look into in the future. But right now, if you do the bulk version in the back end, or if you use our Shopify link flow or create new products in the Gutten Hub, you do have to supply us with that print file every single time. And the reason for that is we have to be able to access it through our tech platform to send it to our manufacturers so they can print it. I know that's often a time-consuming part of the process. So again, any feedback on how we can make that simpler for you is always appreciated. I see another question in here. Do you offer organic, fair trade, or sustainable apparel items? So that's actually a question we get fairly frequently as well. And I am sorry to say that right now we don't. As an earth lover and sustainable, well, I try to be person myself. I would love it if we could expand into that category. It's a little bit harder to find a vendor that supports that and to have those models in sight or on stock. It's something we've talked a lot about, and if it's something that's really important to your business, we'd love to hear about it. But I will have you know that we do take conservation very seriously, which is why our largest manufacturer, our biggest apparel printer, does plant a tree, I think for every X number of shirts sold, I forget what the number is, and they have a big conservation push themselves. So we do take that seriously, and we try to partner with manufacturers who are sustainable and don't produce waste as much, or minimize their waste as much as possible on the vendor side. Okay, I have a question here. What's the process for getting quotes on bulk orders? So Stevan mentioned this a little bit. We do primarily focus on direct-to-garment printing, but we do have access to screen printers. So the process on getting a quote for a bulk order, and when I say bulk, I mean usually 50 units or more is what would qualify as bulk, is write to our partner support team and let them know what t-shirt model or what apparel model you'd like to print, and then how many designs you would like to print. So if you're talking about doing 100 t-shirts with one design across a bunch of different sizes, that's easy because we can run that through a screen print machine and it'll save you significantly on pricing. But if you're trying to print multiple designs and multiple colors and different models, the best route is usually to go direct to garment. So because we don't have our own screen print machines necessarily, we have to use our vendors. There is sometimes a capacity concern. So the only word of caution I say to our partners is if you think you're going to be doing a ton of bulk, you definitely want to get in touch with our team and they'll connect you with either me or someone on our team to talk more about your business model. But you'll want to make sure that you have plenty of lead time. So if you know that there's an event in 4 weeks or 6 weeks that you want a bunch of t-shirts for, that's probably enough time. But we won't be able to turn around a big bulk order in the same production time frame that we usually quote of 2 to 4 days. So just keep that in mind. But email our support team with any questions on that. Okay, question here about direct-to-garment hoodies. So we actually do offer those. We have a couple of different brands. We have pullover hoodies and zip-up hoodies. They're different product categories. We have Gutten. I think we have some American Apparel or alternative apparel. We're working on adding some independent models. So we do have those products, and if you'd like to order a sample, go ahead and place that order through us, and you'll get a $25 credit towards your first $100. So you can order a bunch of colors, see what you like. Question here about how do you ensure quality if products are coming from different vendors? That's a really good question. And Stevan, I'm actually going to go back to you. Can you talk a little bit about what your team does and how we monitor quality for all the different vendors that we work with?
Sure. So what we do in terms of quality control is that we take it very seriously. So whenever a partner does have an issue with an order, they contact our partner support and they immediately forward the complaint to our team. We get together with the vendor, identify the issue, identify why the problem is happening, get a free reprint out to the partner, and put processes in place so that a certain type of an issue does not happen on a regular basis anymore. With that said, we do expect up to 1 to 2% spoilage rates, which is an industry standard. But as far as any complaints go, we do take them seriously. We do log them. We do have quality reporting on all of our vendors, and we do order our parts to the office regularly, ensuring that what we sell to our partners is what we're actually getting to the office and the people close to us.
Thanks, Esty. Yeah, he's not kidding when I say we take it very seriously. I manage and work with our partner support team here, and we have a pretty robust error report rate process set up that our team runs, our seven teams run with the help of all of our feedback from you guys. All right, I'm going to take 2 or 3 more questions just from the list, and then we're going to wrap it up. But feel free to email Frank with any questions afterwards, and we'll get some answers for you. Question about, is footwear coming down the line? That's a great question. We actually have now a vendor in our network that does footwear. The challenge is that a lot of the products come from China. So figuring out how to make that available to you in a time frame that makes sense is something we have to figure out. And then also just ensuring quality is there. But that's something we've talked a lot about. I don't think it's going to be there anytime soon. And by anytime soon, I mean in the next few months. But it's definitely a product category that we've talked more about. That being said, we do have flip-flops right now. Those are easier to print on, so you might want to check those out. All right, last 2 questions. So you mentioned that you have a UK apparel vendor. Can we expect to have smart geo-locating solution for apparel by this holiday season? So that's a great question. And when I think about routing apparel globally, it's a little bit different than the way I think about routing other products globally. So we're currently in the process of a project to essentially have regionalized production, which means having vendors in different regions for our wall art. But for apparel, it's a little bit different because you have to match the blanks, the actual t-shirts or hoodies that you're producing internationally. And so Gutten in the US is actually different. Well, actually Gildan's a bad example. Bella and Canvas in the US or Port & Company in the US is actually different than what you would find in Europe, potentially. So this is something we've talked a lot about because we see a lot of value in it. That all being said, right now we're pretty happy with our international delivery capabilities through our main manufacturer. And fun fact, it's actually cheaper to ship a shirt from the US to Europe than it is to ship a shirt from the UK to Europe from our UK apparel vendor, simply because our DHL shipping rates are so competitive from our US vendor and we have such good coverage. So I would say it's possible that we have smart geo routing this holiday season, but to be completely honest, we're prioritizing some other products for that first, just because it's simply way more expensive to ship canvases internationally than it is to ship t-shirts. So we're trying to make the most painful go away first, but it's definitely something that we're working on. All right, final question is, will you offer all over print hoodies anytime soon? So we're working on t-shirts right now for an all over print. Hoodies would be awesome, and that would definitely be something I would love to see this fall. But stay tuned on that. If now that I'm seeing that question, it's making me want to get a sample. I've seen a few in the past few days, but I'm going to ask for more. So it's definitely something we're working on. But again, to be honest, I think t-shirts and potentially tank tops would come before a hoodie. All right, I'm seeing some more really great questions come in that I want to answer, but I'm conscious of time. So these will all be saved. If you think of anything else, please email Frank, email me, email our partner support team. We'll get those answered for you. And I hope this was helpful. I loved talking to SP as always. He is our vendor wizard, and I look forward to working with all of you soon. All right, thanks everyone. That is going to be the end of the webinar.